All right, the third one is human flourishing. Okay, if we believe there's an objective reality exists out there independent of our perception and our feelings, and that includes an objective thing, ontologically, there is something in existence called human nature. If those two things are true, then I think they lead you to a conclusion that there's something called human flourishing or eudaimonia.
You nailed it. You
Yes.
nailed it.
Okay. So, which is the Greek, like that was Plato or Aristotle coined the term, I guess, or at least made it famous. But the idea is, given those preceding two items, what is good for us? What enriches us? What cultivates our well-being as human beings is something that we can discover.
Indeed.
And the goods that we can pursue or should pursue, the things that are worth our pursuit, those are also things that we can discover them. This is a worthwhile venture, and we can discover this venture is less worthwhile, or maybe
Indeed.
even counterproductive. It is maybe even harmful to our well-being to undertake certain efforts. And then this is where I get a lot of pushback as I engage with people. Is I'll say, like, so you don't get to, like, your free will is not so that you can invent or decide this is what is good. This is what is good for me or good for society. You don't get to pick that. It exists objectively, and we can all triangulate on it, and we can be, some people are more right and some people are more or less right. Even if we're all trying to get the right answer, there is some objective answer about whether or not something is good or bad. Now, to steal, because again, think something I would not have thought about prior to discovering Scientific Skeptic and your channel, and I've watched hours of Sam Harris. Is that his name? And he talks about a landscape of human flourishing, where it's not a matter of there's only one right answer. It's not a matter of every person should be trying to pursue the same goods in the same way for the same reasons. He would say there might be many different ways to achieve human flourishing, but there's a lot more ways to mess it up. And I think I agree with Sam Harris on that.
So David Hume, arguably the most modern of skeptics, in as a precursor and a member of the early Enlightenment project, suggested that you can't derive an ought from an is.
Right.
So he believed in an objective world out there,
Right.
the ontology stuff,
Right.
but he argued that we can't derive any moral conclusions, objectively speaking, from the facts of the universe, and that essentially morality is subjective. All that you need to concede with me is that there are at least better moral answers and worse moral answers. So
Interesting.
if you don't want to take the strong form,
Yeah.
at least let's talk about, and the example I always use is, if you think that a civilization which allows gratuitous murder and doesn't sanction murder is going to be just as healthy and successful as a civilization which does not promote the value of gratuitous murder and sanctions
Right.
gratuitous murder, then, in the words of Sam Harris, I don't think you know what you're talking about. I don't understand what you're talking about, and I'm pretty sure that you don't either. The
Please.
fact that people don't agree on moral conclusions doesn't mean that
Right.
it's not a thing that exists out there
I'm
in
so
terms
glad you
of
said that.
how
Yes.
to objectively discuss how to create flourishing societies as opposed to failed societies, and how there are likely better ways to get there. So, in the Sam Harris landscape metaphor, there
Yeah.
are better ways to accomplish more human flourishing
Right.
and worse ways to accomplish human flourishing. And all that you need to concede to me to get there is
Yeah.
that we can we could all imagine a society that would be a nightmare, that nobody would want to live in, and that would
Right.
lead to horrific outcomes. So eudaimonia. So when we're talking about, then now we're firmly in the realm of axiology. We're talking about how a universe should be, how a universe could be, how we can construct as agents in this universe with agency, who can actually impact upon the world, constrained by the laws of physics? How can we attempt to create civilizations, societies, cultures, norms, um, ethics that are at achieving our aims? Hume's position, which is why it has become essentially a sort of dogmatism that you cannot derive an ought or a should from an is. So you can describe how the universe is through science, but you can't bring to bear that massive body of evidence to say how we should be, how we could be, what we should do to be able to improve our opportunities to be happy or to achieve fulfillment or, dare I say, self enlightenment. And this is where,
Self-actualization, I think,
or
is
self
Maslow's term.
actualization, to use Maslow's term. So this is where we find common ground again, Mr. Homemaker and I, that we both disagree with this claim. We are a function. We exist, right? So Descartes just came up with the very clever and now viral um, Latin expression of cogito ergo sum. He questioned, what can we know about this, the thing that I find myself in, existence? And he said, I think. Therefore, if I think, I must be a thing in this universe. I must exist for thinking to even be something that could occur. And so he essentially asserts that the only thing I can be certain of is that I actually indeed exist. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. And he attempts to then, that's the only thing he essentially can be comfortable with asserting with any confidence, is that at least he is. Well, what is he? So now we're talking about, what is the thing that can think? Well, it's a product of the universe. It emerges from the laws of physics. It's constrained by the laws of physics. And then we have an area of domain that we refer to as evolution. And what can we say about evolution? If you believe in that sort of ridiculous thing that's backed by a massive amount of evidence, and I forget who the person said it was, but he said essentially that everything is meaningless absent evolution as a foundational premise. So if you don't accept evolution, then pretty much you might as well throw away everything we know about biology, because it's a foundational
Right.
premise, axiom, a belief. And so in that context, then, so what are we? If Descartes says, I think, therefore I am, he is. So so what is he? Ontologically speaking, what is the thing that just said, I think, therefore I am? He's a human being. He's a Homo sapien sapien. He's an animal. He's an organism which finds itself on this planet which we call Earth. And if you disagree with those things, we have to begin there. But if you don't disagree with those things, then we
Right.
can have a conversation about what sort of animal is this. Well, this is an animal that is built by the universe to try to survive, and has a set of skills, essentially to promote that end, which is to survive, to procreate, and to survive, to find nutrients, to find viable mates, to avoid pain and suffering. So, given what we know about the thing that we are, we can say certain things about how to get to survive in this
Right.
world. So, because we're built to want to avoid pain and suffering and to survive, we can talk about strategies that might be better or
Right.
worse at
Right.
how to survive, minimize pain, and optimize living, the experience of living. Or where I differ from Sam Harris, and I'm not exactly sure why he's not grounded his moral realism in biology, and I don't know. I mean, from this, I've
Hmm.
always been confused as to why he doesn't attempt to ground it in just our biological directive to try to survive. So we're having a conversation about strategies in
Right.
this universe constrained by the laws of physics to better improve your odds of survival. To be my position, I've not found other moral philosophers grounding moral realism in biology. And I don't
Hmm.
know why. And I don't know why that's because they feel constrained because they're talking philosophy, I don't know. I mean, how can you not
Interesting.
appeal to science, which is a conversation about how the world really is, or at least the best understanding we have